The courthouse is still, oppressively still, as the heavy wooden doors swing open and the Brown family enters. The highly lacquered floors shine with the morning light, casting long shadows across strained faces. Kody sits at the front, poker-like stiffness, hands arranged neatly on the table in front of him, his jaw set. For a man who spent years exuding calm and control across the big screen, this room is different. The force of the law, of secrets yet to be uncovered, presses upon him. Robyn sits next to him, her hands gripping the edges of her folder with such intensity that her knuckles turn white. Her mouth is set, a barely suppressed tremor betraying her nervous agitation. Across the aisle, Meri strides in with intent, slow, measured strides, her face impassive, yet her eyes smoldering with a fire that very few people have ever seen. The judge, a gray-haired woman with steel-gray hair tied back in a rigid bun, glances around the room, eyes piercing and authoritative. "We are here to try the case of Meri Brown versus Kody Brown and Robyn Brown," she says, her voice slicing cleanly across the room's tense silence. "You may proceed." Meri stands up, carrying a folder that looks almost ridiculously heavy. Her voice doesn't fluctuate, though the very slight shake of her hands betrays her feelings. "Your Honor, this case is about something larger than money, property, or public image. It's about truth. About revealing the falsehoods that long enough have been concealed behind the smile, family picture, television interviews." A muted hum stirs the courtroom. Christine sits silently some rows away with her arms crossed, pursed lips, and blazing anger and distrust in her eyes. Janelle has her eyes set steadily on the floor, looking at no one, as the audience, comprised of girlfriends, advocates, and outsiders, closes in, anticipating the tempest that threatens to brew. Meri puts the folder on the table, unfastening it gradually. There are photographs, messages, and documents therein, each one a piece of a puzzle that has long remained hidden from the public view. She reaches for a folder that reads, "DNA analysis," and unfastens it with caution, rustling of papers sounding through the silent room. The tension is so heavy that it seems to be almost possible to be sliced with a knife. Kody twists in his chair, a tiny stiffening of his jaw, as Robyn's hands shake as she clutches at the folder. "Your Honor," Meri begins, lifting her voice slightly, "today's evidence will demonstrate inconsistencies in the words of Kody over the years. It will demonstrate that the facts were twisted and that some of the family's members were intentionally kept in the dark." The judge relaxes slightly in her chair, raising her eyebrows but remaining silent as if invited to go on with Meri. Meri lays out the pictures and letters in front of the court, tapping at certain pictures and excerpts of letters. "You see, for instance," she says, her finger resting over a letter, "Kody publicly proclaimed that he didn't know about some of the finances. However, the accompanying communication irrefutably proves that he knew about each and every detail and had approved each one. This is no conjecture, this is irrefutable documented evidence." The whispers in the courtroom are louder. Christine's eyes sparkle with rage, Janelle's hold on the arm of her seat becomes tighter, and even Robyn's stoic face betrays a look of panic. The audience hunches forward, knowing that the narrative is about to hit a turning point. Kody sits back in his chair and opens his mouth to speak at last, his tone husky and moderated but marked with tension. "These allegations, they are misleading. You're taking things out of context." Meri meets his gaze head-on, unwavering. "No, Kody. The facts speak louder than words. Context can't erase the reality that these documents demonstrate." Robyn interrupts, her tone fragile but insistent, as if she were begging. I didn't realize all of this. You have to believe me, Your Honor. I learned some of this recently." The judge looks at her with one eyebrow raised, gavel lightly tapping the stand. "Ms. Robyn, all will be listened to. But be forewarned, this case is no easy one." The room tension fluctuates. At this point, it is charged, a silent tempest clouding over highly polished wood and emotionally charged faces. Eyes of every kind follow Meri as she continues to present her case, each paper, each picture, each letter weaving the tapestry that Kody and Robyn had kept up a facade whilst concealing facts that touch not only them, but the whole family. Meri summons her first witness, a close family friend who has over the years had access to private discussions. Their account substantiates the discrepancies Meri has laid out, verifying that Kody had had information about things that he had publicly disavowed. The courtroom listens, hanging on each word, as years of covert manipulation and communication breakdown start to emerge. The legal counsel representing Kody try to rebut with procedure objections, challenging the materiality of some items of evidence. But Meri has prepared exhaustively. She has foreseen each possible obstacle, refuting with precision and equanimity, making the courtroom ever more mindful of the building weight of the evidence. As the session progresses, the emotional temperature rises. Christine's sharp questions and pointed comments pierce the room, creating tension not just between the family members but between the lawyers and witnesses as well. Janelle's quiet despair is a stark contrast, her occasional trembling and downcast eyes speak volumes about the silent suffering of years. Robyn's reaction shifts between guilt, anxiety, and helplessness, creating a complex portrait of a woman caught between loyalty and truth. Then Meri grabs the last piece of evidence from this hearing, a sealed envelope that has remained that way thus far. She takes it with caution, hands shaking slightly, and looks up at Kody with a steady gaze. "Your Honor," she states gently but decisively, "this document has information that will substantiate all the discrepancies. It will, at long last, bring finality to the activities and choices that impacted this family over the years." The judge leans forward a bit, her eyes growing sharp. The room quiets, the kind of quiet that makes every subtle movement seem enormous. Kody turns white, Robyn's hold on her folder a vice. Even the audience seems to be holding its collective breath, realizing that what is to be said could irrevocably change the dynamic of the entire family. Meri waits, allowing the gravity of the moment to be absorbed. Every set of eyes is trained on her, every beat of the courtroom watching in unison as she measures each step towards the unveiling of long-buried truths, secrets that have defined the public image of the Brown family for years. The session concludes with the first wave of shocked faces in the courtroom. There are gasps, whispers, and shocked silence. Kody sits stunned, Robyn appears devastated, and Christine sits forward with wide eyes. Janelle unobtrusively wipes a tear away from her cheek. The judge places her gavel gently on the desk, acknowledging the power of what has transpired in silence, yet reminding the room that the day is hardly over. The courtroom reconvenes after a brief recess, but the air is heavy this time, as though the room itself is holding its collective breath. Everyone knows that the envelope Meri brought to the table during the last session has some revelations that could send the family's smoothly polished image crashing to the floor. Kody sits rigid, chin set, eyes darting to Meri with terror and defiance. Robyn sits across from him, hands tense on the table, her ashen face contorted into a tight circle. Christine sits huddled forward, fingertips steepled, bright hawk-like eyes poised to spring on the first misstep. Janelle, as always, sits as still as a statue, but fidgets with the edge of her dress, unable to muster anything like composure but failing as tears silently bespots her cheeks. The judge looks around the courtroom with her usual sharp glance. "We will be resuming with the evidence from the envelope Meri handed to us earlier," she says, her voice echoing off the wooden panels. "Ms. Brown, go on." Meri rises, holding the envelope as though it contained a fragile yet lethal instrument. She opens it slowly, making the rip of the paper sound through the quiet. There are the DNA reports, the letters personally written, the bank statements, all set with precision. She looks at Kody and Robyn for a split moment then begins. "Your Honor," she starts off, her tone strong but with a hint of reserved fervor, "what I am laying on the table now will present irrefutable proof of inconsistencies, lies, and secrets that were kept hidden from this family long enough." The courtroom leans in. Tension is so thick that it can be sliced with a knife. Kody's fingertips beat out a nervous rhythm on the table. Robyn's respirations increase, and Christine closes her eyes as she drinks every word in. Janelle bounces back and forth in her chair, gripping the edge of the bench as if it is the only thing that is preventing her from toppling over. Meri starts with the DNA report. "These findings," she says, tapping the page, "validate what many suspected but could not document. Some statements made publicly by Kody do not hold up to the biological evidence that we now have. She adds emphasis, allowing the power of her words to sink in. The gallery gasps. Whispers spread throughout the room like a quiet wave of tension. Meri continues, moving on to the messages she found. She reads aloud texts between Kody and Robyn that deny statements made to the other wives and the public. Each message reveals secret discussions about financial choices, private family arrangements, and private betrayals. The courtroom responds in real time. Christine bangs her hand on the table, a sharp exclamation emerging from her mouth, while Janelle's hands shake and her lips set as she struggles to stay in control. The tension in his tone betrays him, though, as Kody leans in, tone low and even. These texts. They're misleading. You're cherry-picking. They don't present the entire picture. Meri meets his gaze. Kody, the whole history is laid out in these texts and documents. This isn't assumption or interpretation, this is facts. Robyn, typically unflappable, at last breaks her silence, her voice shaking with actual fear and regret. I didn't know some of these things. You must believe me, Your Honor. I never intentionally hurt anyone. The judge nods, her expression unreadable. Ms. Robyn, we will take your statements into consideration. Please be silent as we proceed. Meri summons the next witness, a longtime family friend who has seen interaction over the years. The witness corroborates Kody's secret assurances to some wives but deceptive assurances to others, exposing manipulations that have long gone unnoticed. Their testimony is one of a man attempting to manipulate perceptions with chosen revelations. Christine sits with rigid jaw, while Janelle nods almost imperceptibly, tears brimming in her eyes. Robyn's hands grip together as she sits, her self-control faltering. The room tension builds as Meri stands up to the financial records. Here, Your Honor, she states, we have transfers, accounts, and resolutions that are inconsistent with Kody's representations to the rest of the family. This information has been hidden for years, giving the appearance of disclosure. Kody fidgets, trying to jump in, but Meri keeps going without pause, her tone growing slightly elevated to accentuate the seriousness. Every disclosure hits with the force of a hammer, rocking the courtroom. The audience sits forward, transfixed, unable to look away. Christine then opens her mouth, her voice sharp and indignant. This is not about facts. This is about manipulation, about years of breached loyalty. Everyone in this room is entitled to answers. Her voice shakes as she says, we've had to endure pain and confusion long enough. The world needs to know the truth no matter how painful. The courtroom is a tempest of feelings, anger, fear, betrayal, and brutal exposure all converging. The judge raps her gavel once, lightly, with the hopes of establishing order, but the tension is nearly too much to bear. Kody sits immobile, eyes darting about, wordlessly begging to be given a stay that will not be granted. Robyn buries her hands over her face, her voice indistinguishable as she whispers that she is sorry. Meri's latest bombshell is the most explosive yet, a hidden cache of documents and letters that suggest furtive meetings, unilaterally made decisions, and backroom politics. The courtroom gasps as one. Christine flushes with anger, Janelle trembles uncontrollably, and even the audience sits forward as if to intrude on that developing drama. Kody rises finally, voice reaching a high note, wanting to be in control again. These allegations are exaggerated. There's context that you don't know about. Meri, unruffled but resolute, confronts him. No, Kody. Context won't deny facts. This is about facts, about truth that has repercussions. Robyn, tears streaming down her cheeks, implores, please believe me, Your Honor. I didn't realize the scope of this. The judge sits there, her expression unwavering. We shall accord all testimonies and evidence our utmost concentration. The case is hardly finished yet. Meri calls one final witness for this session, a former employee who handled the family finances and witnessed private family interactions. Their testimony corroborates Meri's evidence, confirming hidden arrangements, financial discrepancies, and private agreements that had been kept secret. Each word adds a layer of credibility to Meri's claims, leaving Kody increasingly isolated and under scrutiny. The room is charged, the silence heavy, as Meri closes her folder. Everyone is watching Kody and Robyn, to see how they will respond. Kody's face is gray, Robyn's body shakes slightly, Christine sits up, her eyes flashing. Even Janelle, who has remained silent during the session, can now allow herself a quiet shuddering breath. The session concludes with Meri standing over one final envelope, this one marked with the simple word, truth, on it. She lays it out attentively on the judge's table. Your Honor, this final paperwork will present the final piece of the puzzle, revealing the full extent of the discrepancies and clandestine activities. The tension in the courtroom is thick as air when the hearing begins. The aftershocks of the latest bombshell revelations still linger, as if smoke from a fire that still no one can see the end of. Kody sits behind a visage of calm, but the slight tremble in his fingers betrays him. Robyn's fingers are constantly fidgeting, turning tissues and folders into an anxious loop. Christine's eyes are sharp and unforgiving, scanning each face, each expression. Janelle, still as a well, bends back in her chair, trying dignity, but the rigidity of her shoulders and the darting glance to the floor reveal a pent-up storm. The judge raps her gavel, calling the room to order. We reconvene the case of Meri Brown versus Kody Brown and Robyn Brown. Ms. Brown, proceed with your next testimony. Meri rises, holding a folder full of further evidence, photos, texts, and personal testimony, this time describing the emotional toll the secrets have taken on the family. Her voice is stern but with a low intensity level. Your Honor, this isn't just about lies or contradictions. What Kody and Robyn have done has hit the women of this family very hard. Their trust, their security, their very lives, have been manipulated by decisions made behind the door. The room falls silent, all gasping. Kody fidgets uncomfortably. Robyn's biting on her lip. Christine's leaning forward, tension etched across her face, while Janelle's blinking rapidly, fighting back tears. Meri spreads out the first of her pieces of evidence, a thread of clandestine messages showing how decisions regarding the family property, finances, and even vacations were made behind her back, and how this made her feel manipulated and betrayed. She reads from a message that looks harmless upon initial glance, but as she elucidates it, the gravity of its implication becomes evident. This letter, Meri maintains, holding it up to the court, shows that Kody was aware of these financial arrangements, but decided to mislead other family members. It's not just lies, it's control, and it's caused years of pain. Christine slams her hand on the table, her voice sharp and accusatory. This isn't about documents. This is about trust, about the lies that have been permitted to go on too long. Janelle's lips tremble as she speaks softly, almost whispering, we've lived in a state of confusion for years. Finally, the truth is coming out. Robyn's face white, she cries out louder, her voice pleading. I never meant that anyone would be hurt. You have to believe me, Your Honor. I was trying to do what I thought was in the best interest. The judge leans forward, his eyebrows furrowing. Ms. Robyn, your feelings are on tape. But we must separate intent from effect. Cool down. Meri continues, describing emotional outbursts that were marred by behind-the-scenes manipulations, birthdays forgotten, promises broken, and family decisions made in stealth. Each blows like a sledgehammer, sending shock waves through the courtroom. Christine's hands shake ever so slightly, Janelle's fingers curl around the edge of her bench. Robyn's shoulders sag, tears ready to fall. Even the gallery gasps, divided between fascination and repulsion. Meri calls her next witness, a cousin who has known the family for years. Their testimony is emotional, recalling occasions when the women of the family had been kept in the dark regarding decisions directly affecting their lives. They were promised everything would be done correctly, Christine's cousin testifies, voice trembling, but time and again, the reality was hidden. It wasn't just wrong, it was cruel. Christine's voice rises. This is not just a matter of money or property. It's about respect, about dignity, and about being lied to over and over again. Kody squirms in his seat, his face white, finally speaking in a strained defensive voice. This is blown out of proportion. Some things are quoted out of context. The family would see that it cannot be disclosed at once. Meri welcomes him calmly and firmly. Kody, convenience and context is not the problem here. It's about honesty, transparency, and accountability. And their lack has caused gigantic harm. The court becomes tense. Robyn quietly weeps, her composure breaking down. Janelle wipes at a tear, softly barely repressed sobs escaping. Christine's hands shake in barely suppressed fury. The atmosphere within the courtroom is heavy, the air thick with raw emotion, betrayal, and heartbreak. Meri opens another file of documents, private notes, love letters, and clandestine messages, revealing clandestine alliances and secret decisions from other wives. These communications, she goes on, exhibit selective information sharing, favoritism, and decisions that emotionally harmed others. The consequences have been devastating. The judge is focused, face impassive but eyes intent. We will consider all evidence gravely, she states. Ms. Brown, please continue your testimony. The emotional stakes rise again when Meri has a private conversation with Kody where he dismisses concerns brought up by the other wives. She sets out the feeling of powerlessness, frustration, and betrayal experienced by Christine and Janelle through decades of silence and manipulation. The air in the room appears to be thick with anticipation as every sentence is important. Christine slams her hand on the bench again, voice firm. I've spent years living in the shadows of deception. It's maddening to see how my concerns were dismissed. Janelle, voice trembling, goes on, and I held my tongue, looking for peace. But the truth always comes out, doesn't it? Robyn, crying openly, speaks in a barely audible whisper, I didn't want this. I never wanted anybody hurt. Kody simply sits, motionless, silent, staring at the floor, gradually coming to the realization of exposed reality. The judge taps her gavel lightly, trying to maintain order, but the air is charged, as if the room itself is alive, and it is desperately suffering from the tension. Meri then calls as a final witness to this hearing, a former family house manager who had seen the family dynamics firsthand. Their testimony confirms the manipulation, secrecy, and favoritism within the household. It wasn't about decisions, the witness asserts. It was control. Some members were left in the dark on purpose, and it brought emotional tension and stress for years. Christine's eyes burn with anger, Janelle's shoulders slump in relief at vindication, and Robyn cries outright. Kody finally speaks up, voice low and hollow. I had no idea it impacted everyone so much. Meri shakes her head, voice firm. Kody, it's not a question of realizing. It's a question of responsibility. The ramifications of what you did, and what you didn't do, have impacted every single person in this room. The judge leans back in her chair, her gavel gently resting. We will take a short recess to digest the testimonies and evidence presented. There has been so much uncovered today, and the emotional undercurrent is evident. The interview is finished with Meri placing the final set of documents on the judge's desk. Everyone in the family stands noticeably shaken. Kody's fingers tremble, Robyn's body heaves with muffled sobs, Christine grits her jaw and Janelle blots silently at her eyes. The courtroom is locked in stunned silence, waiting for the next episode of a story that has grown more volatile and emotional by the minute. The courtroom doors swing open once more, and the air is electric, denser than ever. The weight of past sessions hangs suspended, an approaching storm cloud ready to burst. Kody slumps stiffly at the defense table, his jaw clenched, fingers drumming a nervous rhythm against the cool surface. Robyn by his side seems fragile, fidgeting with a folder, darting nervous eyes about the room. Christine leans forward, every wrinkle on her face creased with anger and disbelief. Janelle says nothing, but a glint of sadness, frustration, and anticipation crosses her eyes. The judge, a bulwark of composure in the gathering tempest, bangs her gavel on the bench. We continue with the case. Ms. Brown, you may continue. Meri stands, calm but resolute. She approaches the table with the final batch of evidence, documents, photos, and first-person account that has never been heard. The courtroom waits with bated breath as she begins to speak. Your Honor, she begins, her voice strong but with restrained passion, what you are about to hear is the culmination of years of clandestine acts, clandestine manipulations, and silent betrayals. The truth has been hidden, and today it shall be made public. Kody wriggles uncomfortably, fighting to remain calm, but his clenching jaw and fluttering hands give away his tension. Robyn presses her lips firmly together, fighting not to sob. Christine's eyes flash with repressed fury, and Janelle white-knuckles the bench she sits on, visibly bracing herself for what is about to happen. Meri presents the initial documents, financial reports with discrepancies in family accounts, secret transfers, and secret expenditures. Each revelation crashes like a hammer blow, shocking the courtroom. These records, Meri indicates, pointing to one quite damning document, show transfers and payments that were willfully withheld from some family members. This wasn't an oversight issue, it was intentional, and it's resulted in long-term emotional and financial tension. Christine pounds her hand on the bench, leaning forward. This is absurd. How can anyone justify such dishonesty? Janelle is trembling, barely whispering, we trusted them, and this is what we get. Kody finally speaks a word, voice strained but attempting authority. This is being misconstrued. There is reason for everything. Meri stares him straight. Kody, context cannot remove facts. Every action has outcomes, and the outcomes in this case are real and hurtful. The courtroom is electric as Meri moves on to the next series of evidence, cryptic messages and tapes of covert meetings and affiliations. The messages reveal a strategic design of half-truths and withholding of information, laying bare how some family members were kept in the dark while others were in on it. Robyn hides her face in her hands and silently cries. Kody's complexion blanches, his composure collapsing as whispers circulate in the courtroom. Christine's fingers clench on the edge of her bench, jaw set in anger and frustration. Janelle sniffs her nose, her shoulders trembling. Meri calls the next witness, a close family friend who has observed years of intimate interactions. Their testimony is explosive. They remember occasions where Kody secretly decided, opting to keep information from certain wives. It wasn't neglect, the witness says, voice steady but with conviction. It was intentional. Some were favored, and others emotionally manipulated. The harm has been devastating. Christine's voice rises sharply. This isn't just about what was hidden. This is about betrayal, about disrespect, about a pattern of behavior that has been tolerated for too long. Janelle leans forward, voice trembling. We've lived in fear and confusion. Finally, someone is holding the truth up to the light. Robyn whispers, almost pleading, I never wanted anyone hurt. Please understand. The judge leans back, expression neutral but engaged, tapping her gavel with a soft rap to maintain order. Passion hangs in the air. Kody says nothing, his defense crumbling, as Robyn's shoulders quiver with suppressed sobs. Christine's eyes blaze with fury, and Janelle's lips compress into a line as she fights to contain her feelings. Meri then presents the most astounding proof yet, a string of messages and papers showing that Kody had secretly promised certain family members choices which actually contradicted what he had guaranteed others. The room reacts in a flash. Gaspings fill the air. Whispers ripple through the gallery. Christine slams her hand again on the table. Janelle clutches at her heart, her eyes wide with shock. Robyn's face pales, tears streaming copiously. The courtroom is in suspended animation, everyone holding their breath waiting for Meri to read. She reads from one particular message, describing a secretive deal that broke trust, altered family configurations, and caused emotional anguish over time. The implication is sweeping. Kody does finally rise up, voice shaking but firm. These are exaggerations. This is being manipulated to create a false narrative. Meri's eyes lock on his. Kody, the documents and messages speak for themselves. The evidence does not lie. Robyn buries her face in her hands, muffled sobs escaping. Christine leans forward, fury evident, while Janelle wipes a tear, trembling as the truth unfolds. The judge pauses, letting the gravity of the revelations register. She raps her gavel gently. We will continue to hear all testimonies. It is clear that the factual and emotional richness of this case needs to be dealt with a discerning ear. Meri continues to the session's final witness, a former employee who had managed domestic affairs and had seen private family interactions. Their testimony confirms patterns of deception, selective disclosure, and hidden alliances that have created emotional disturbance and havoc in the family. Christine clenches her fists, her voice filled with rage. This is not about lies. It's about respect withheld and trust broken. Janelle bends forward, speaking in a whisper to no one in particular. At last, someone is speaking the truth. Robyn continues to silently weep, her tears gentle but unrelenting, as Kody sits stiffly, the burden of exposure weighing down upon his shoulders. Meri then brings in the final piece of evidence for this hearing, a document of decisions that directly contradict Kody's public statements over the years. This, she sets it down gently on the judge's desk, binds together the inconsistencies, the secret meetings, and the hidden decisions. It reveals the full extent of what has been kept secret. The courtroom falls silent. Every face is a mask of shock, incredulity, or despair. The audience leans forward in unison, trapped in the gravity of the moment. Kody's hands shake slightly. Robyn's body convulses as she fights to keep herself together. Christine's jaw is set hard, and Janelle dabs another tear away. The courtroom is charged with an electric tension as the fifth session commences, a taut silence hovering above each seat. The resonances of past disclosures linger like wraiths reminding one of the facts already revealed. Kody Brown stiffly sits at the defense table, his eyes fixed intently on Meri, jaws clenched. Robyn to his side quakes, her hands wringing a folder like holding herself together body and soul. Christine leans forward, fingers clasped together, eyes aglow with excitement and seething fury. Janelle, firmly supportive but visibly disturbed, presses her lips firmly together as she prepares for the last clashes. The judge raps her gavel gently, calling order to the room. We will move on to the last evidence and testaments of this case, she declares, her voice sharp and commanding. Ms. Brown, please continue. Meri gets up, clutching the last folder, her expression stoic but resolute. The room appears to breathe as one. Your Honor, she starts, we have reached the stage where the whole picture needs to be laid out. What has been revealed not only reveals discrepancies and concealed actions but shows a pattern of manipulation which has befitted this family for years. Kody fidgets, his fingers drumming on the table. Robyn buries her face in her hands, stifling sobs. Christine sits forward, unblinking and intent. Janelle quietly dabs at her eyes, her face a combination of fear and hope. Meri begins to open the first document, a set of messages showing secret promises and promises Kody had made to some members of his family while at the same time deceiving others. These messages, she states, her voice firm but intense, evidence a conscious pattern of selective disclosure and favoritism. Some members were warned and reassured, while others were left uninformed, triggering tension, confusion, and emotional distress. Christine bangs her fist on the bench, voice rising in anger. This is ridiculous. You can't manipulate people's lives like this and get away with it. Janelle speaks quietly, almost to herself, I've always felt something wasn't right. But now I understand how far-reaching it is. Robyn, shaking, at last finds voice, speaking very softly. I didn't realize. I really didn't know how much suffering was inflicted. The judge tilts forward slightly, her eyes narrowing. Ms. Robyn, your emotions are recorded. But the facts that are here cannot be disregarded. Meri then rolls out a bombshell series of documents, financial disclosures and secret arrangements that conflict with Kody's public declarations over the years. Each new disclosure comes with the thud of a hammer, resonating throughout the courtroom. Gasp rings out in the gallery. Christine's fists become tight, knuckles white. Janelle's shoulders shake as she quietly clings to her bench. Robyn buries her face in her hands, and Kody's stoic facade is starting to crack. The tension is cranked up further as Meri calls the next witness, a former family insider, whose testimony reveals secret meetings and pacts, verifying years of favoritism, emotional manipulation, and deception. It was intentional, the witness states, voice firm but full of conviction. Certain members were consistently kept uninformed, while others were manipulated to maintain control. The consequences were emotional and psychological. Christine's voice rises sharply, full of anger. We've all been lied to, manipulated, and left in the dark for far too long. This stops now. Janelle leans forward, tears streaming quietly down her face. I can't believe how much has been hidden from us, how long we've suffered in silence. Robyn's silent tears fill the courtroom. Kody's hands shake a little, and his voice is low and strained. I didn't know it had gone this far. Meri's face is calm but firm. Kody, intent doesn't take away impact. What you've done, and what you haven't done, has caused real harm. The judge raps her gavel gently, keeping the room in control but allowing the seriousness to hang in the air. We will now hear the last piece of evidence. Meri extends her hand to the envelope marked Final Truth, positioning it delicately on the judge's desk. This paper, she says, holds all the remaining evidence that connects the inconsistencies, covert actions, and manipulations. It is the culmination of years of cover-up. The courtroom is quiet, as if it is holding its breath. The audience leans forward, with eyes wide and excitement crackling like static electricity. Robyn shakes, Kody's face goes white, and Christine's eyes bore into the room with intensity. Janelle dabs at another tear, mentally steeling herself. Meri slowly starts to disclose what's inside, communications that establish that decisions impacting several family members were made secretly, financial actions hidden deliberately, and emotional commitments broken in a manner that left deep pain. The gravity of each detail is experienced by all in the room. The gallery responds at once, murmurs circulate, gasps break the silence, and heads shake in incredulity. Christine slams the bench in exasperation. Janelle sits forward, shaking with relief and shock. Robyn still weeps softly, placing hands over face. Kody's body tenses, eyes wide with understanding. Meri calls a last witness, an old friend who has watched the family's dynamics unfold over the years. Their testimony validates every discovery, covert deals, information sharing on a selective basis, and choices meant to control emotions and keep control. Each word falls like a punch, silencing the courtroom in shocked hush. Christine stands up a little in her chair, her voice shaking with rained fury. This is not fair. It's appalling. How could anyone defend this to their own loved ones? Janelle leans forward, her voice barely above a whisper. Finally comes the truth. Finally. Robyn, still crying, whispers once more, I didn't mean to hurt anyone. I really didn't. Kody finally rises, his words low but unsteady. I believed I was doing the best thing. I didn't see the effects. Meri shakes her head, voice firm. Kody, intention counts for nothing when the effects are so severe. The effect exists, and the truth has to be accepted. The judge leans forward, gaze roving the room. The court has heard considerable evidence and testimony. It is evident that these disclosures have greatly impacted the family. We will break for a short time to enable all parties to absorb the information before receiving final statements. The audience is still, the atmosphere heavy with tension. Kody slumps heavily, defeated and pale. Robyn's body trembles with silent sobs. Christine leans in, fists balled, jaw clenched with rage. Janelle wipes tears from her cheeks, mutely recognizing the burden of the truth now revealed. When the recess comes to a close, Meri makes the final arguments, each word clear, measured, and keen. She recaps the evidence, the depositions, and the emotional damage, creating a full picture of lies, manipulation, and concealed truths. All members of the family sit in shocked silence as the full extent of the revelations falls on them. Christine's voice cracks at last, trembling with anger and emotion. This family has suffered silently for far too long. The truth hurts, but it needs to be known. Janelle nods, softly adding, we can no longer ignore what has been kept from us. It's time for healing and accountability. Robyn, still crying, whispers, I hope there can be forgiveness. Kody sits, pale and still, the complete weight of exposure resting like a boulder in his chest. The judge raps the gavel gently, her face measured. This case has uncovered truths long hidden. The court recognizes the pain, the betrayal, and the emotional devastation on this family. Further proceedings will sort out accountability, but the disclosures here are undeniable.